So one day I got curious and asked ChatGPT if griffins were mammals or birds. It told me they were chimeric creatures? What? That's not what I asked. I know griffins aren't real, but what if they were real? Then what? We can't organize a real animal into a fake term like chimeric creature. We need to use real-world classifications like mammal, bird, reptile, or maybe even insect. Okay, probably not insect. So where does the griffin fit? It has a eagle forehead, forearms, and wings on top of a lion's body, back legs, and tail. It looks mostly bird on the outside, but appearances can be deceiving. To figure this out, we need to take a look at what actually makes a mammal and a bird a bird. Mammal versus bird. Webster Dictionary defines mammal as any of a class of warm-blooded, higher vertebrates that nourish their young with milk, secreted by mammary glands, have the skin usually more or less covered in hair, and includes humans. Yes, you and I are mammals. Unless you're a mermaid, undead creature, or lizard man. Now, let's define bird. A bird is any of a class of warm-blooded vertebrates, distinguished by having a body more or less completely covered with feathers, and the forelimbs modified as wings. Alright, pretty simple. Since both mammals and birds are warm-blooded, we don't need to cover that. In addition, we don't have to worry about feathers or fur. The definition describes mammals and birds mostly being covered in fur and feathers, respectively. They don't need to be completely covered in one or the other. The only creature known to have a fur and feather-like covering is an extinct dinosaur called the pterosaur, which is actually a reptile. Could a griffin be a reptile? No. This idea stems from the thought that pterosaurs have fur like feathers, but griffin's feathers are obviously from the eagle's counterpart, while the fur is from the lion's. It's not because it's a reptile, it's from mixed genetics from two separate creatures. Now that that's out of the way, let's get to the things that do matter. The first trait I want to dive into is the griffin's reproduction system. Do griffins lay eggs? Laying eggs is a staple bird trait. Mammals don't lay eggs, with very few exceptions. I'm looking at you, Mr. Platypus. So which does the griffin do? It seems the general public, aka Reddit users who thought way too much about this, griffins probably lay eggs because 1. It's tough to give birth safely to something with that many limbs. 2. They're flyers, so being pregnant with an entire baby would tend to weigh them down. That actually makes a lot of sense. A heavy baby griffin would make flying super impractical. But what if the male griffin flies and the female stays grounded? Yeah, this majestic creature actually mates for life. It's not far-fetched to think that they could co-parent. It's possible that the mother could stay in the nest, and the father would go out and hunt. As for birth, sure, it might be hard, but griffins are rare. Their rarity could be due to low birthing rates. So what is it? Eggs or live young? Even with a lion body, it just makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint that the griffin would inherit the eagle's egg-laying trait. So, eggs? Most likely. Speaking of young, how do they feed their young? While mammals feed their babies with milk, birds bring bugs or regurgitate their food into the baby's mouth using a crop. A crop is like a food storage pouch that the birds have in their upper abdomen. So the question is, would a griffin have a crop? The problem is, flying creatures have big lungs. When you take a lion and a bird and size them up next to each other, the bird's lungs are smaller. But if you take them and make them the same size, the bird has huge lungs in comparison to the lion. If we assume the griffin's stomach is in the same location as a lion, then the crop would be here, pressing near the lungs. Birds have 2 air sacs that help circulate air, and guess what? Griffins definitely need those, or they wouldn't be able to fly at all. There's just no room for the crop. Unless you squished their organs together, but organs are in a specific place for reasons. Moving things around like that would cause all sorts of problems, which means no regurgitating food. So how do baby griffins eat? Hypothetically, griffins could hunt prey and bring it back like a lot of birds do. But a lot of their prey includes large animals such as deer, which would be very difficult to bring back to the nest. I think a more probable explanation would be that they produce milk. I found this painting called the Tiger's Griffin, created in 6 AD. It's displayed in the Great Palace Mosaic Museum. And, well,
Not to point out the obvious, but it was female.
Which brings us to griffins are mammals. The griffin is a rare case of a creature that lays eggs and produces milk. But it's not the only one. This actually exists in nature. There is a family called monodremes, a group of mammals that lays eggs that includes the duck-billed platypus and echidnas. Aside from having feathers, the griffin matches this description perfectly. So, despite looking like a bird, griffins are mammals. But what do you think? Are you team mammal or team bird? If you're team bird, then why? Just why? I laid out the evidence. Let me know in the comments. Also, if you want me to classify another mythical creature like mermaids, dragons, or centaurs, tell me. Maybe I'll turn it into another video. Until next time, keep exploring history, one creature at a time.